Chapter 36. "Shouldn't we go the other way? We know there are hunters upstairs," Tiffany asked, pointing to the far end of the tunnel. Through the clearing smoke that was pouring from the room, the outlines of several men came from where she was pointing. "Never mind, let's go." We ran past many other cells, and Daniel abruptly planted his feet and stopped. "Daniel, we need to go, now! What's the matter?" I pleaded. He looked at the heavily bolted doors and said nothing. He didn't have to. "You're right. We need to save them all. Tiffany, I need your help." I ran back to him as the hunters rounded the corner. 3 rapid shots rang out from only 30 feet away, and Daniel wiped them aside before they got anywhere close to us. 3 more shots rang out from behind us, and one of the hunters fell to the ground. The others drew back behind the corner. Tiffany took a knee and leveled the gun at the corner. She popped another shot, and the corner of the cinder block blew apart. "I just wanted them to know what will happen to their head if they stick it out," she said with a smirk. At the first door, I hit the green button and opened it to find a young girl no more than 5 years old in a long white nightshirt. She was standing in the middle of the room, looking at me with her head tilted. I don't really understand kids, at all. In fact, I find them somewhat creepy, this kid in particular. "We are getting out of here, okay? I'm just going to take you away from these bad people." Nothing. She just stood there, emotionless. Tiffany pushed me aside and stuck out her hand. "Come on, sweetheart, time to go." The way she smiled, I would have followed her too. The 2 of them went to the elevator, which was still being held open by our doorstop friend. The next 2 rooms were empty, which made me wonder if they were being tested in a different area of the building. In all, there were 6 kids, including Daniel, all between the ages of 5 and 10. The last boy was too weak to walk, so I carried him. We ran to the elevator where Tiffany had all the children waiting, and the doorstop pushed back into the hall. I looked at the stairwell door that was broken off the hinges. "I'll meet you back at the surface," I yelled. "We need to draw them into the stairwell again. Go!" She didn't question me and let the doors close. I raced to the stairwell that was now flowing with water. Perfect. Taking the stairs 2 at a time, I focused my power on making the kid as light as possible. How do parents carry these heavy things around all the time? With only a few steps left and the door in sight, I leaned down and pulled the heat out of the water flowing down the stairs. It froze instantly where my hand touched it and proceeded to freeze down the steps. Carefully, I climbed the last few and walked through the door on the main level. To my disbelief, Tiffany had not yet arrived. I set the boy down against the wall and stood in front of the elevator. Something was not right. When the doors opened, the look on Tiffany's face told me the situation was rapidly deteriorating. I could hear gunfire outside where Nico and Tony had successfully drawn out the fallen hunters. Now we just had to figure out how to get around the one standing in the elevator with Tiffany and the kids. The evil grin of Horatio glared from behind the group, with one hand holding a knife at Tiffany's throat. The other held a grenade with the pin removed. His hand was heavily bandaged from our encounter earlier this evening. To make matters worse, voices could be heard ascending the staircase. They were struggling on the ice, but they were coming. I figured we had 2 minutes at most before the reinforcements arrived. Horatio guided the crowd out of the elevator and into the center of the room. His maniacal sneer confirmed his departure from the sane train. He said nothing for several seconds as the voices in the stairwell got louder. Finally, the bell for the closing elevator door sounded, and he said, "Time to go, piano man!" With a flick of his hand that was holding the knife, he plunged it deep in her throat. His other hand flicked the grenade into the center of the kids. He turned and leapt between the closing doors of the elevator and was gone. My brain never even considered the grenade as blood spurted out from between Tiffany's fingers. I caught her before she hit the ground and pressed hard on the wound in her neck. Her eyes looking deep and desperate into mine. The voice screamed in the back of my head, pulling my attention to the loose grenade. With only a few seconds left before it exploded, I slowed time to decide how to proceed. Tiffany had only seconds to live, but if a grenade went off, the kids would die. And there was another problem. I had no idea where the grenade landed. As I scanned the slow-moving mass of children, another unexpected sight formed. Diving through the air was an extra-large security guard with his face locked in a barbaric roar and a grenade in his hand. The power welled within me as time returned to normal, the healing energy flowing into Tiffany's torn jugular, and sealing the entry wound. Behind me, I was faintly aware of a large man performing an aerobatic mid-air twist, launching the grenade down the open stairwell. The concussive blast shook the floor, and the voices were replaced by the sounds of heavy bodies sliding lifelessly down a slippery staircase. Tiffany looked up at me, life back in her eyes, and said, "You idiot! You were supposed to save the kids." I laughed and replied, "Nah, I knew Steve had things well in hand." She looked at me, baffled at my reasoning. Her hands felt her neck, looking for the opening. "Don't worry, I got you." She smiled, and we got to our feet. Daniel had the kids grouped together in the center of the room. As the only 12-year-old, he was the natural leader. I looked at the large man lying next to him, breathing hard. "Steve, you all right?" I asked. He twisted a bit and looked up at me. "I think I pulled something. I haven't moved like that since I played rugby in college. Of course, I was half this size then. Don't worry about me. I haven't felt this alive since I quit the force." I helped him to his feet. "Can you tell me if there is another way out of here? I have a feeling that there are lots of bad guys waiting for us on the other side of this wall." He shook his head and said, "Nope, this is it. I always thought the place was a fire trap. Not sure how they got away with it, really." "You wouldn't believe me if I told you, buddy." "Well," I said, "we need to go out the front door. Feel like joining us?" Tiffany had reloaded one of her guns and threw it to him before he answered. "Get ready to see some real shit, Steve. It'll make you wish you stayed tied to your chair," Tiffany said with a grin. "And for the record, I'm sorry I wanted to shoot you earlier. I'm glad you turned out to be one of the good guys." "Steve, take the kids through the door once you see the coast is clear, and keep an eye out for Horatio coming from the rear. He isn't gone yet." Steve looked confused. "And where are you two going to be?" I looked at Tiffany and smiled. "We're going to walk out that front door and give 'em hell."